The Galactic Council had made a grave miscalculation when they assigned Ariel Cade to the Vexthari youth training facility on Station Kepler 9. They thought sending a human instructor would demonstrate their commitment to cross-species integration. What they failed to account for was humanity's bizarre approach to, well, everything. Ariel stood in the center of the combat training hall, watching 12 Vexthari cubs attempt their 15th consecutive drill. The Vexthari were a proud warrior race, obsidian-scaled bipeds with crystalline eyes that could see in 17 different spectrums. Their cubs trained from the age of 3 solar cycles, learning combat forms that had been perfected over millennia. They were also, Ariel had discovered, absolutely terrible at pacing themselves. Again, barked Combat Master Zarvoth from the observation deck, his scales rattling with approval as the cubs executed another flawless sequence. The enemy does not rest. Neither shall the Vexthari. Turin, the smallest of the group, swayed slightly on his feet. His scales had lost their usual luster, dulled by exhaustion. Around him, the other cubs pushed through the forms with mechanical precision. But Ariel could see the micro-tremors in their limbs, the slight delay in their responses. She'd seen this before. Back on Earth, in boot camps and training facilities across human colonies. Push, 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 until something breaks. The Vexthari philosophy was simple. Adversity forges strength. Rest is weakness. Humans had learned differently. The hard way. Ariel glanced at her chrono. 4 hours. 4 hours of non-stop drills. She caught Turin stumbling, catching himself just before face-planting into the training mat. The cub's legs were shaking. Master Exervoth, Ariel called out, her voice calm but carrying across the hall. Request permission to implement human training protocol. 7. The combat master's eyes narrowed. We are following the Vexthari Warriors Codex, Instructor Cade. The cubs have another hour before water rations. With respect, Master. They're children. Even warriors need. Weakness begins in the mind, human. These cubs will be. Ariel wasn't listening anymore. She was watching Turin's scales beginning to gray at the edges, a sign of severe dehydration in young Vexthari. She'd read the medical files. She knew what came next. Collapse, organ stress, potentially permanent damage to developing neural pathways. She made her decision. Cubs, Ariel whispered, her voice barely audible but somehow cutting through the noise of the hall. Every young Vexthari head snapped toward her. Humans, they'd learned, never whispered unless something important was happening. 5 minutes break. The effect was instantaneous and catastrophic. Turin's eyes went wide, and then he simply fell. Not collapsed, not stumbled, he dropped like someone had cut his strings, flopping onto the mat with a dramatic wheeze that sounded like air escaping a punctured hull. His limbs sprawled out in 4 different directions, his tongue lolling out in what Ariel could only describe as theatrical despair. Break! Another cub shrieked, interpreting Ariel's whisper as some sort of human war cry. She too collapsed, sliding across the mat with the grace of a malfunctioning cargo hauler. Then the floodgates opened. Cubs began dropping everywhere. One spun in a circle 3 times before falling. Another executed what might have been a combat roll but ended up as more of a tumbling disaster, coming to rest upside down against the wall. A pair of them grabbed each other and fell in tandem, creating a small pile of exhausted, dramatically sighing Vexthari youth. What? Combat Master Zarvoth stood, his scales flaring in alarm. What is this? Cubs, on your feet! This is disgraceful. You are warriors of the... But the cubs weren't moving. They lay scattered across the training hall, like the aftermath of a very gentle, very localized apocalypse. And they were making sounds, soft, chirping whistles that the Vexthari made when deeply content. Ariel walked over to Turin, who had claimed the largest section of mat for himself. His eyes tracked her approach, but he didn't move a single scale. Instructor Cade, he chirped softly. Absolutely mandatory, Ariel confirmed, sitting down cross-legged beside him. She pulled out her water rations and began distributing them. Human military regulation. Optimal performance requires periodic rest. Your muscles rebuild during rest, not during work. Your brain consolidates learning during downtime, not during drills. But Master Exervoth says, Master Zervoth, Ariel interrupted gently, is training you the way his generation was trained. And they're excellent warriors. But do you know what humans discovered? 12 pairs of crystalline eyes fixed on her. We discovered that the strongest warriors aren't the ones who never break. They're the ones who know when to rest. So they never break at all. She smiled. Your bodies are growing. Your minds are learning. You need rest like you need water. It's not weakness, it's tactical advantage. From the observation deck, Combat Master Zervoth descended, his approach radiating disapproval. But as he reached the training floor, he paused. The cubs were already looking more alert, their scales brightening as they hydrated. Turin had rolled onto his side, but his eyes were sharper now, focused. This is, Exervoth began, then stopped. He'd been about to say, unorthodox, but the word died in his throat. The cubs looked better, significantly better, in just 3 minutes. Human training doctrine, Ariel said quietly, standing to face him. Work hard, rest hard. Push to the limit, then step back. The strongest steel is forged with cooling periods between heatings. Why should warriors be different? The combat master studied her for a long moment. Then he looked at his cubs, young, exhausted, but recovering, with visible speed, now that they'd been given permission to rest. 5 minutes, he said finally, his voice gruff. Then we resume. 10 would be better, Ariel countered. But 5 is a start. As Zervoth returned to the observation deck, Turin rolled fully onto his back, all 4 limbs in the air, and let out the most satisfied sigh Ariel had ever heard from a Vexthari. Instructor Cade, he chirped, humans are very wise. Humans, Ariel corrected with a grin, are very tired. We learned this the hard way. The other cubs chirped their agreement, a chorus of exhausted but content warriors in training. And if some of them took 11 minutes instead of 5 to get back up? Well, Ariel Cade was human. She understood that sometimes the best battles were the ones you chose not to fight. Sometimes, whispers carried more weight than war cries. And sometimes, the most dramatic collapse was exactly what victory looked like.